Hello, today we are going to talk about the KDE issue number 397736. So the KDE issue tracker is on https://bugs.kde.org. This is the ID of the issue. And the issue is for the KDE product Elisa, which is a media player, and says since Elisa supports loading playlists of type M3U and M3U8, it should also support loading playlists using the file format PLS. So it says it would be great if Elisa supported a popular PLS playlist format. So this is not a bug, it's actually a feature request. So let's see what would be needed in order to actually do and finish this issue. Okay, the very first thing that we need is to build from source code the application called Elisa using KDE src-build, and then to make sure that we can run the application from KDE src-build. Okay, so let's do that. We start a terminal. Let's look at my KDE src config. Okay, so I have the defaults. In here I have CMake build configuration debug, not rel with debinfo, because I want to use the debugger. The correct number, of course. These are defaults. I changed stop on failure true to false because I can build most of the KDE Git repositories using KDE src-build, and the rest are defaults. Okay, so let's start building KDE src-build, and the name of the KDE Git repository is called Elisa. Phonon GStreamer is apparently a KDE collection but contains no active module to build. So it will build 70-something KDE frameworks version 5 and some libraries that are required by the KDE frameworks. And then at last, the last module to be built will be Elisa. So it has git cloned the KDE Git repository sysadmin repo metadata, which contains the dependencies between KDE Git repositories, such that we know in which order to build the KDE Git repositories. Then extra CMake modules, which is an extension for CMake, which is the build framework for the KDE modules. And then it started with KDE frameworks version 5, so kcore add-ons, kinternationalization, karchive, kconfig, etc. I'll be back when it finishes building. Okay, so Elisa has built correctly using KDE src-build. 74 of the modules were from KDE frameworks, and some supporting libraries. And the last one was Elisa. Build successful, 11 compile warnings. Now let's see if we can run this Elisa from the one that was built using KDE src-build. Let's open a new tab in console. Let's source the prefix file. It's in the build directory. Okay, and now we run Elisa. Okay, so the application starts correctly. And the feature is about the playlist, which is this right-hand sidebar. Has two buttons, a button to load and a button to save the playlist. Okay, and the button show playlist, which hides the right-hand sidebar with the playlist. Okay, everything seems to be okay. Okay, let's make sure that the correct Elisa has started. Ctrl-Shift-D to open new tab in console. And then we go lsoff, which shows the list of open files, so all of the .so files that are loaded in any process. It's a huge list. Let's filter this by Elisa. And what it says that the KDE frameworks version 5 SO files are taken from tilde/kde/usr/lib and then the triplet, whereas Qt and libraries below that, so the X libraries, GCC, udev, png, zlib, X, bzip2, etc. are taken from /usr, so from my Linux distribution, which is Kubuntu 22.10. This is my hardware computer. Okay, so let's find out where are we supposed to add support for PLS playlist formats. So it says load, and in here we have a filter by playlist. We don't know exactly which types, which file extensions does it filter by. Let's create some dummy files. Today's directory, Shift F4, a.m3u. We leave it empty. b.m3u8. Let's make this b. And c.pls, the new file type that we should support. Okay. So this filter is not for all file types, but it's for file extensions of type m3u or m3u8. So it doesn't show as a possible file to select c.pls, so it doesn't support PLS. Okay. So we know quite a bit about the Elisa support for M3U. Now we're ready to open the source code of Elisa and start searching for things there. Okay. So let's do that. We'll open Qt Creator. I have a Qt Creator which is downloaded from the official website of the Qt project. I'm at version 9.0 beta 1. Meanwhile, there's a final release of Qt Creator 9. Okay. Nothing is opened in the integrated development environment Qt Creator right now application. So we go File, Open File or Project. Let's close Elisa. Where is Elisa in here? So it's in tilde/kde/src/Elisa. And we need to select the cmakelist.txt file. Then we need to clean up all of the kits, which is not the desktop default one. Manage kits. We should only keep this one, which is italic desktop default. Delete everything else. Okay. And then we need to is it? We need to open the cmake build directory for Elisa. File. Where is it? Import existing build. So again, we're in the left-hand sidebar projects mode. So switch to projects mode, Control 5. In here, we go import existing build. We go paste. So tilde/kde/build/Elisa. We just open the directory. Don't select any file in there. So choose. It has created a new build configuration, which is called debug2. It has run cmake configure successfully. Okay, let's build, which would be make. Okay, 100% success. And now we can run. So let's see what we can run. So again, we're in projects, switch to projects mode, Control 5, and we go to this tab to build and run, imported kit, run. And in here, in run configuration, we select Elisa, which is the main application, or we can select one of the tests. So all of these entry points which end with the word test is in fact a test. Okay, so we select Elisa and we press the button run. So this this green triangle, which has the tooltip run, Ctrl+R. Okay, so it managed to start Elisa correctly. This means that we're now in a development loop, so we can edit one line of code, we can file save all, then we can build, and then we can debug. Or we can debug, because debug will also trigger the build, as we saw here. Okay, so let's see how the source code looks like. For that we use this sidebar, which is show left sidebar Alt 0. We can switch between the views file system, which shows us the directory where the KDE Git repository Elisa was git cloned, or we're using projects view, which shows us the cmake targets. So we know that there's a cmake target which is called Elisa, which is this hammer Elisa thing. Let's expand it. So we have source files, main.cpp. This is the main entry point of the executable Elisa, this function. Okay, let's put some breakpoints in here. Let's start debugger. It's going to take some while. Okay, so we have built using KDE SRC minus build everything that's KDE Git repository. We didn't build using KDE SRC minus build Qt or the libraries below that, such as the archiving libraries, the Xorg libraries, the font libraries, the image formats libraries, codecs libraries, etc. So just KDE libraries and the other KDE Git repositories. So QSurface format is from Qt. We don't have the CPP files for that, so we can't actually see what's inside of the default format static method. We can see its .h file from tilde/kd/usr. where it was make installed. No, so Qt we only have from our Linux distribution, which is Ubuntu 22.10, so it's in /usr. /usr/include is the place for Qt.h files, and /usr/lib the Qt SO shared libraries. Okay, but we don't have CPP files for Qt, so we can't really step into the method default format. If we try, we don't see anything. So let's try to step into debug, step into F11. Now we're inside C++. So we don't have anything in there, just header files, and .h files can contain some implementations because we're in the C programming language, so the templates and their specialization have the source code inside .h files, not inside .cpp files. Okay, so this was a static format, a static method, while this is an object and this is a class. Let's go and see. So control click, this is a class as expected. This is a static method. It says here static. This is an object and this is a method. So it's not static and it's on the class QSurface format, which this object format is of type QSurface format. Okay, so right now we're getting familiar with the Elisa source code by using the debugger. The debugger shortcuts are continue to go to the next breakpoint, step over F10 to go to the next line in the same file, step into to go inside of the current function call, step out to go one to return to the caller function from the callee function, so F10, F11, Shift 11. Okay, so we go F10, we should go to line 59 in the same file. F10, step over. F10, step over, F10, step over. We don't have any source code yet. Okay, while we waited, some SO files and maybe their debug symbols were loaded by GDB, which is the GNU debugger, which is what's actually debugging the Elisa process. Okay, and now this line 87 actually contains source code from a KDE Git repository, which is called k-localized string, which is from tilde/kd/usr kf5 k-internationalization k-localized string.h. This is a static method, and the class is which one? K-localized string. So if we use just the code navigation tools, so control click, it takes us to tilde/kd/usr, but this thing also exists in two other directories. Exists in tilde/kd/src/k-internationalization in the file k-localized string.h, but also in tilde/kd/src k-internationalization k-localized string.cpp. So the CPP file where the actual implementation of this method is. So if you only try to navigate the source code with control click or with follow symbol under cursor, it will just navigate to tilde/kd/usr, which is not enough. We want to see the real source code in tilde/kd/src. For that we need the debugger. So now we can step into F11, which is this thing. And now we're inside the CPP file from tilde/kd/src internationalization klocalized string.cpp. The only way to get at the CPP file is through the debugger. Now, once we're in the CPP file, we can switch to the header file, which is in tilde/kd/src klocalized string.h using switch header source f4. So right click, switch header for source f4. So again, we have three files which are about the same class. One is klocalized string.cpp, the other one is klocalized string.h, and the other one is klocalized string.h. So one is in tilde/kds/src klocalized string cpp, then tilde/kd/src klocalized string, and then tilde/kd/usr klocalized string.h. So this file was actually copied by make install when we build K internationalization, the KDE Framework 5 module. It's this file copied to this location. So make install has copied this file to here. When we run make install, when we run kdsrc-b, when kdsrc-build has built ki18n, so the K internationalization module. Okay. So now we can see the source code CPP file for all KDE projects that are running inside of the Elisa project, inside of the Elisa process. Okay, so we can go F11. We can't go inside the qmutex locker because this is Qt. Okay, as application domain, this is an assignment, as being a klocalized string private statics, which is the pair of this class. Okay, so I went F10, kcrash initialize, also it's KDE source code from the KDE Frameworks 5 module named kcrash. So we have kcrash initialize. We can go in here and see what happens. Okay, Q environment variable is set. If these environment variables are not set, okay, kcrash k Dr. Conky is about creating some sort of information, a report, bug report if the application crashes. Okay, and now we can look at the, let's delete all breakpoints. Let's look at the threads. So we have three threads. One where we're working, which is the thread 1, the thread that does probably does the GUI painting. And then there's two threads from the Qt main loop, which use G-object. glib. Okay, qxcb event q. Okay, so inside of the thread that our source code runs in, the first thread, we have the following call stack. The function main, we're at line 99. In there, we have called the static function, the static method kcrash initialize. And now we're inside kcrash initialize at line 234 in here. Okay. So if we go shift F11, which means step out, it will jump from here to here. Okay, this is what we want to do. So debug step out Shift F11. So it jumped back into main.cpp, and now we're back inside the main function. This thing and this thing. Okay, so this is the key about data. This is used for the help menu about and for two command line parameters. If we start Elisa from the command line, okay, so this is the way you run Elisa in the debugger. Let's now get close to what we're after. So we want to see what sort of source code is in the Elisa KDE project that handles M3U files. So for that I open Visual Studio Code and I search M3U. Okay, there's many translations. We'll ignore those, all of those. So let's go files to exclude elisa.po, and then we also want to exclude the documentation, so index.docbook. Okay, so just two files remain. There's the CPP file Q media playlist proxy model test, where it says playlist file from the current directory. Okay, temporary file. It opens the file and then goes save playlist. So this is a test. Okay, and then we have the .qml file, which is a different programming language. This is not C++. This is QML, Qt Quick. So the only mentions of M3U are starting from line 154 up to line 156. So just this block mentions M3U. So what does this block do? It says there's a file dialog which might be of type save file or open file. If it's save file, it should call the method media playlist proxy model, which I guess is C++, dot save playlist. If it's not of type save file, so this is JavaScript equals triple equals. If it's not saved file mode, then it's file dialog file open mode. And we're on this code path where it says media playlist proxy model, which I'm guessing is C++, and then calls the method load playlist of the full file path of the files that's selected. Okay, so let's continue running in the debugger. So let's look at the QML. So it says on accepted, which means we have pressed the OK button, which is this button, this open button. Okay, let's find the M3U file. So again, in this directory, we have 3 files, but the filter says that only M3U files and M3U8 files are accepted, which we can see in here. So it says this is a file glob. What file globs are? Let's look at file glob. So this thing, when you say asterisk.txt, you mean any character any number of times, including 0. So 0, 1, any number of times. When you say question mark, then you say any character once. So for instance, question mark.txt could be a.txt. Asterisk.txt could be cat.txt. Question mark.txt could be ca.txt, but could not be cat.txt. So just 2 characters, any characters. So any character once, any character once, and then .txt, which is the extension. Okay. So could be any character any number of times, then dot, then M3U, then any character any number of times. So could be 0. In that case, the extension is just M3U. Could be 1. In that case, it will accept files with the extension M3U. Or could be any other characters, any number of times. So could be e.m3u test. Okay, let's keep it empty. So this filter allows anything after .m3u. That's how it works. We have this glob with for any character any number of times, including 0. Okay, so we should just look at this part for now, because this is the entry point to the functionality that we want to implement. Okay, one first thing that we could do is to allow support for the PLS extension. So for that, we look in here. We don't have nice things. I don't know what tool to install in here. Let's try this. We'll uninstall it if it's not good enough. I just want a bit of syntax highlighting, nothing more. Okay. So let's hide the sidebar and add support for the extension PLS. So this looks like JavaScript. This looks like JSON. This is probably an array. So I'm going to copy this entire thing, which is probably everything that's needed for M3U and M3U8, and add support for PLS. Okay, so in here, this is Qt syntax for what's called the file save as and file open dialog filter. So for this combo box. Okay, so we'll say we want PLS type playlists, and the glob should be asterisk.pls, and then we need to not let's see how it looks like. So it says option file type MIME type for PLS, not for M3U8, file format, do not translate, m3u.pls. Okay, let's see how it looks like. we need to stop the debugger. If the debugger is still running, no, it's not running. We can ignore the debugger and just run without the debugger. Okay, so we go load. And now in this combo box, we have two options. We have playlist and PLS playlist. Doesn't look that great. It doesn't say what's the difference between playlist and PLS playlist. So let's put in here M3U playlist, Ctrl S. Okay. So we saved this thing. We can run it again. So it builds only what's needed. It doesn't do a rebuild, it does a build. So really fast. Load. So there's two options, M3U playlist and PLS playlist. I don't know how to capitalize M3U. Make it all uppercase or keep it like that, I don't know. Okay. So now if we go in our directory where we have test files, if we go M3U playlist, it shows 3 files. If you go PLS, it shows just one file, c.pls, which we can select. But there's no source code that knows how to parse that file. The file is empty, so there's nothing to parse anyway. Okay, so that will be the first thing to do. Let's do a git commit. Let's not lose our work. So in the directory where the source code resides, ~kd/src/elisa, git GUI. We should be at master. So we're at the same git commit local master and the remote origin master branch, which means that we're up to date. Ctrl Z PG. Let's do a fetch just in case. So git fetch. Let's look again. So again, the local master branch and the remote origin master branch is at the same git commit. So we are on the master branch. Let's stage this file. Let's look at the difference. So it's a really long line. Internationalization with context. This is a message for translators, and this is what to actually translate. This is the message for translators, and this is what actually to translate. And in the message it says that the glob *.pls is really important, is a programming source code. We don't ever want to translate this thing. So keep it not changed, do not translate *.pls. Okay, so looks okay. Let's prepare the commit message. So where, the name of the file, and then what did we do? Also file dialog allow *.pls. Okay, let's look at the history. So from a remote origin master, there's just one git commit. That's on the local master branch that we have in our local git repository. Okay, looks okay. Let's see what we can do next. Back into Visual Studio Code where we search for things. So this is the block. That's the QML part that knows about .m3u and .pls. Okay, these things are okay both for PLS and M3U. These things are okay for both PLS and M3U. This is just a default, so it selects a default suffix if we want to save the file. Not a problem. What about this? Is this part, does this part also both support PLS and M3U? So for now, we'll just implement the load functionality, so file open dialog. So this is the file save dialog, this is a file open dialog. It says media playlist proxy model dot load playlist of file dialog dot file. So this is the full path of the file. There's nothing special about M3U on this line. So let's go here. Control C. Let's search in both places. Control Shift F in Qt Creator, Control V. Case sensitive whole words only, search. Okay. We find it in the test. We don't want to edit the test. We find it in the QML. The QML is fine. And then we find it in two other places. In Elisa application.cpp, where it says open files. So there's a list of files and a working directory. I don't know what this thing does. And then something that's really familiar, which is media playlist proxy model .cpp. And media playlist proxy model, this thing, colon load playlist, which is this method, load playlist. Okay. Let's make sure it's not static. Switch header source. Where is it? Load playlist, so it's not static. It's an object method that receives a queue URL. So you might be also able not to have just local files, but also URLs. Okay, that point to the .m3u file or to the .pls file. Okay, let's put a breakpoint in here and see what the source code really does. The debugger is not running yet. Let's close the find. Collapse everything, so escape, escape, escape closes all of the other tool views. We have put the correct breakpoint, and now we can start debugging of startup project. Elisa is the startup project. We can see it in here. So let's start debugging. Let's close a bit the sidebar. So Alt-0 show hide left sidebar. We have just one breakpoint. We have deleted all other breakpoints. Just this one at line 5753. Something went wrong. We need to close the application. Start debugging again. So GDB does things, loads SO files. Elisa has started, and now we go load. Q4, it keeps forgetting this directory, which is okay. And we select M3U in RAS and select the first one, a.m3u open. So now we're inside the function the method that we actually need to edit in order to fix all of the bugs which are related to the way Elisa loads files with extension M3U or M3U8, and to add the feature of supporting PLS files. Okay. So let's see. F10. This QURL file name is a const QURL reference to a string which has protocol files, so file colons 3 slashes, and then home, the full path of the file. Okay, so file is the protocol, then colon, then 2 slashes, and then the full path of the file, /home/my username/work, etc. Interesting. Then it says Q file, which I don't know what it is. So let's search for it. I double click on it, Control C, Alt F2, Qt, colon, space, paste. Okay, so Q file class provides an interface for reading and writing to files. You should include Q file, which it did, and then we call what? We call a constructor that takes a to-local file, whatever that thing is, which is a QString. Okay, so QURL to local file, let's look at that. QURL to local file. Okay, so it returns the path of this URL formatted as a local file path. If you use the protocol file, then it will say a full path, a Unix style full path with slash directory separators. We'll use forward slashes, even if it was created with \# on Windows. It also supports Windows SMB network / server name. Okay, if you just give it a file name without the file protocol, it will not know what to do and it will return the empty string. And it must be UTF-8, which it is, because it's a URL, it has the protocol, everything's okay. So it actually returns a Unix style full path. Okay, back to where we were. So this view is the call stack. So I can easily go back to where the debugger is paused by just clicking on line level 1 in the call stack view. Okay, so this will convert to /home/nmariusp/ etc. a.m3u, and then it will call the constructor of QFile. Let's look at what that thing is. So there's a constructor from QString, which is this thing. So a constructor from QString constructs a new file object to represent the file with a given name. Okay, F10. Input file is now an object. It says open read only. I don't know what that thing does. Open read only. Q file read only. Might be this override. So the second parameter has the default value don't close handle, and the first parameter is Q file read only. It's an overload function. Not really, because it has this other one. Okay, so just mode and permissions. Was introduced in Qt 6.3, so not this one. But which one? So it's called open and has just one parameter, which is Q file read only. this time this thing reimplemented public functions and returns a bool. Okay. So could be read-only, could be write-only, could be read-write. Okay, and this is a bool, which is really not okay. The fact that it's using the an auto keyword instead of bool, that just obfuscates things for zero reasons. So this should in fact be bool. Okay. So if it could open the file, then it emits playlist load. If it could not open the file, then it emits playlist load failed, which is not the case. Then it says read all. I don't know what read all does. So reads the remaining data from the device and returns a Q-byte array. Okay, so we go read all. This data is a Q-byte array. Again, why use auto here? Just to obfuscate things. And then it says clear playlist, which is actually a member in this class. This does UI things. We're not interested in this part. And then the part that actually interests us is this part. Okay, so clearing the current playlist is a GUI thing, and queuing, so putting the new playlist in the GUI, is a GUI thing. We don't care about GUI things, we just do in-memory processing. We have the full path of a M3U file or the full path of a PLS file. We have the content of a .m3u or .m3u8 or .pls file as a const Q-byte array. And then we will parse all of that thing in memory, and we will generate the required data structs and data types. So the final result will be called new tracks and will be loaded in the GUI. Okay, so this part is what we're interested in. It's extremely easy to test because again it does just things in the memory. You have two strings, if it were, as it were. So one is the file name to local file, or this thing, the file name as a const q URL reference. We use that to determine if the file is .m3u or .pls, because we'll have an if, we'll do different things depending on the extension of the file. And then we will interpret the body of the file. We'll split the lines, we'll use the syntax of what PLS files can contain, and generate this new tracks object, which is then going to be shown in the UI. Okay, let's find out what this auto thing is, because it's going to be important. Control S, stop, debug. So it's building and then it's starting the debugger. Okay. So we go load Q4 and we open an M3U file. Open. Okay, let's put a breakpoint closer because we don't care about the part from line 753 up to line 762. So we go F, whatever, continue F5. Okay, so we just care about this part from line 762 to line 768. So entry data list, what is this thing? Is a queue list of entry data. What is a queue list? What is an entry data? An entry data is a C++ standard type which is called std tuple of three things: music data type, queue string, queue URL. What's music data type? Is a class which has what does it have? It inherits from data type. What's data type? Is a map from columns, rows, and queue variant. Well, this is going to be something. Okay, so let's go F10 to go to line 763, and then let's look at the type of new tracks. This is quite a mouthful. Okay, so queue list of something of tuple which is actually this type. Okay, Control C, Control V, Control S. Okay, and then in a for it works by lines, so it splits the body of the M3U file by new line, and then it does things in there. Okay, so that's for .m3u files. Let's stop the debugger again. Control S. We will need a way to get back to this exact place. So we'll do a git commit, but maybe we will squash the commits when we do the merge request. Okay. So back at git GUI. So I didn't like that a very simple C++ type such as bool was replaced with auto keyword. I didn't see what's happening there. Then I didn't see that this thing is a q byte array. It might have been something else. I know, a q string or something. And then I want also for new tracks to see what exactly is the type. Okay. Where is the name of the file without any cpp or .h extension, because in C++ there's always the pair of cpp and .h file. So I say playlist, use actual type instead of auto. Okay, commit. Let's look at the history. So remote master, and then 2 commits in the local master branch. Okay, looks okay. And now we're at the big step where we can go many directions, but there will be a progression. So we can either add source code here, or we could extract this thing as a method, which is like right-click, refactor, extract function. Or we can go one better than that, and that's to extract a class. New tracks pushback of what? There's just URLs here. That's all it does. New tracks, pushback, URL. Okay, so in fact, we don't really need this complicated type to be returned by our algorithms. All we care about is a list of URLs. Then what's this type? This is going to be important. Let's see what all of these three consts are, and then we'll see what we can do. So let's start debugging again. So it builds. Application started, loading libraries. F5. Then F10, there's no lines in here, so we will need some lines. If line starts with file, then QURL of that thing. Otherwise, QURL from local file offline. Okay, I kind of understand where this is going. Let's create some MP3 files locally. So let's make, I don't know, a static directory or a music directory. .mp3 Shift F4 2.mp3 and 2 lines is enough. So let's copy this thing. Control Alt C. We added a.m3u, F4, Control V. Can we have relative paths or not? Let's guess relative paths don't work. A trailing new line, Control S. So this ternary allows us either file protocol or just Unix file paths. So I'm using Unix file paths separated with \n with the standard new line, and then a trailing new line. Control S. So let's close the debugger. Let's see if we can guess the types. So const qstring ref. Okay. This is a URL, which is a const QURL. Const QURL. And this thing is a const ref qbyte array. Okay. Control S. Okay, this is a warning that this range 4 is C++ 4-ish, so range 4 might detach the QList container, which is this thing. Which means you need to cast all of this thing to std as const. So this line must be UTF-8 because why? Because QURL requires UTF-8. Okay, so we'll see, because there's plenty of Windows, so files created on Windows with extension M3, M3U8 PLS, which don't use UTF-8. In fact, they might use 8859-2 or something. So other popular in the early 2000s encodings. What was that? 8859-2. This thing. Latin 2. Okay, so we don't support Latin 2 right now. We support just plain ASCII, not ANSI. So only the first 7 bits are set for each character, or UTF-8, which is plenty for now. Okay, so it says data types, entry data list. A line starts with QString literal while it converts a thing. Okay. We're going to keep it simpler if we split this 4 into 2 4s. Okay, so we have new tracks, this thing, and a 4 where we populated the new tracks, and then we have a list of QURLs, which I don't know in which container to put it, because I don't know how QList works. Okay, so let's see. So we want to return a list of QURL. We need to do something like this. QURL list of URLs. How do we declare this thing? I don't know. Let's see. How do other software KDE Git repositories do it? QList of something. So just like that, QList of something, and then a semicolon. This should be enough, okay? So we have a list of URLs. In the first 4, we have created a URL, and now we're going to push it back. Something. Add, append, sounds good. URL, like this. And then we have a for each in this list of URLs. So that's const, and then something, then one URL, then colon, then list of URLs. So can we do that? One URL, we push it back in the list in the new tracks. So we have separated the part that actually works with the body of the file for .m3u with the part that takes simpler data types such as QURL, QString, QByte array, and C++ canonical types, and then it creates this complicated type that's needed for to be sent to the graphical user interface. Okay, let's run in the debugger. The fact that we need to start the entire Elisa just to debug this part is a problem. The fact that we need the entire UI to show up is a problem. The fact that we need to move the Elisa window and then click on load and then click on Q4, click on this, click on that is a problem. Okay. We don't need this breakpoint anymore, so F5. So we're going to create a list of URLs. For now, the list of URLs should be empty with 0 items, yes. And then we create one URL, which is the source code that existed previously. We append that thing in the list of URLs. Yes. And now the list of URLs contains one item. Thing. Correct. There's two files, one.mp3 and 2.mp3. Okay, now it will exit the first four. There's an empty line, so it also treats empty lines, which is a problem. Let's fix this bug. If the line is not empty, how do we do that? So if the line is empty, maybe it was created wrong, maybe there's a trailing new line. Why would we not support empty lines? It should go to the next line. Okay, let's start the save, Control S. So file save all is disabled, which means all of the files have been saved, and now we can start debugging. Again, it's a pain point, the fact that we need to keep waiting for the entire UI to start, and then we need to click 5 times until we finally get to the line 762 where we actually develop. So that tells us that this part should be easily accessible from a test and should be tested. Such that we can start the debugger easier. Okay. So the first one is not empty, it does its thing. The second one is not empty, it does this thing. The third line is really empty. And there's no other lines. Great. So let's look at the list of URLs now. There's 2 items. Correct full path, correct file name. Okay. And now let's prepare the new tracks. We're iterating through the list of URLs. One URL is now the first one. Pushback works correctly. Pushback works correctly. And now let's look at the new tracks. There's just 2 items. This with the QURL we need. How do we inspect this thing? Okay, so there's our file in here on the 0th position, and on the 2nd position there's our file in here. Okay, let's collapse everything. I like what I see. Let's run to see that the files are loaded in Elisa. So they are. Here they are. So now we need to make sure that we do a git commit. Where, what, separate parsing body of playlist file from new tracks. Okay, let's see if we feel like we like what we did, because we were in the debugger and we saw each and every line, what the name of the identifiers are, what values are in there, so everything is really okay. Wait, nothing to see here. Okay. And now we have an API, which means we have this loop, which needs to take as input data, which is a const q byte array, which is the body of the file. We also have the file name as const q URL reference, so that's the input API. And the output of the API is this thing, q list of URL, named list of URLs. So that's what we're going to extract into a class, then extract into other classes. So we'll need a class that can parse M3U and a class that can parse PLS files. At least those two. Okay. Media playlist proxy model. How do we do a class? That's the end goal. The end goal, you want a class that can convert from this pair, so this plus this, to this, no matter what the extension of the file is and what's inside of the body of the file. You want such a class. And then that class will look, if the extension of the file is .m3u, do something. It will look at the body of the file, maybe there's comments in there, maybe there's triple new lines, maybe there's, I don't know, a CSV format or any other extension to the M3U format. Maybe it's not UTF-8, it's 8859-2. So these classes will grow in time as we fix issues. The class that can convert any file, playlist file, to a queue list of queue URLs, and the two classes, one for each format. So one for M3U, one for PLS. Okay, how do we do extract as class? Let's see where we are right now. So we're in the src directory. There's media playlist proxy model. So in here we will need a pair of H and CPP files, or just a CPP file, or no, or just an .h file, which contains the parsers of various formats of playlists files. Can't we just put it in here and be done with it? We need to put it at the start of the file. I know, I'll just put it in here and that's it. So class, what's the name of the thing? Playlist parser. Okay. It has just one method, which is public. Let's go here where we worked. So this is the API. We can make it just parse. Okay, it receives two things. Which one is this thing? Const URL file name, and then the body. You know, does this do reference, and it returns this thing. Okay, and we straight implement it in here. Control S. So I go right click and scroll here where these red horizontal lines appear. Get me this block. Control C. Right click, scroll here. Control V. So this list of URLs is actually called result. It's always called result. And then we return it. Okay. We have data. This thing is called file body, file content. Okay. And we need a file name in order to switch between the various classes. Okay. So this is M3U playlist parser. This is GLS playlist parser. We might need the full file name, full file path, because maybe there's different the format of M3U files might be different from the files with extension M3U8. So we're going to keep the same API. Okay. Put a new line in here. So this class is final and will stay like this. This body will change completely, and this thing will dispatch between this and this. Okay. So if, how do we do that? File name is valid or something. Is valid. Let's validate a bit. Is empty. Okay, we have a bit of validation. And now we need to get the extension of the file. How do we do that? So they just go, line starts with I know. How do we search for extensions? Okay, in here we create a new class, playlist parser, playlist parser. We allocate it on the stack. Playlist parser dot parse. File name is this thing. And file content is this thing. Okay, and this returns this thing, which is of type QList of QURL. Okay, so this is UI things, this is UI things, and the non-UI things we have split into 3 classes. Playlist parser, allocate an object on the stack, use it, and then get a list of URLs. Syntax error. Okay, and then we need a breakpoint in the 3 parse methods. We need to save, and build. We're inside of the debugger. Let's stop the debugger. Stop. Build. Such that we can place the breakpoints. Unused parameter file content. Okay. Let's implement a bit more. We should do a git commit because we're too far. So again, a new class which just dispatches based on file name. A class with just M3U and M3U8. A class with just PLS. And better name for the file content. We've moved this to the body of the M3U method. We create a dispatcher class and then we call its only method. Okay. Dispatcher class playlist parser. Add. Okay. So how does it dispatch? Based on extension. How does it do that? I don't know. How does it do that? Let's search for extension. We need file extensions, not QML extensions. And we need the files .cpp. Something like ends with or something. So we can convert from QURL to QLocal file. This thing. Extension. Ends with. What does QURL actually provide us? So QURL. What does it do? So enums, constructor, operators, destructor, swap set, toString returns a const QString, clear scheme, top level port, file name. So there's a file name. Relative is local file. Matches is whitelist. That's it. So the best bet is file name. What does this thing do? Fully decoded file name, that thing. Okay. Control W to close this thing. Control V. Okay. So this is a Q string, so we need to know if it ends with something. Okay. If it ends with PLS, case insensitive, we don't want case sensitive, we want case insensitive. How do we do that? Control Z, Control C, Control W, case insensitive, Control S. So in this case, if this thing, then we need the PLS code path. So result equals this thing. So we need to define them in the correct order. Okay. So PLS playlist paster.parse file name and file content. Okay, else the other code path m3u m3u m3u. Okay, this is it. This is an error. So we need to construct a Q string. How do we construct a Q string? I don't know. Let's search again. So double quote and then something with Q string. This thing Q string literal. Maybe. There's too many ways to create a Q string correctly. Q string literal. Let's try with this. Okay, Control S. Let's see that the source code runs because now we are able to run. So we have the dispatcher done. We have the M3U done. So just the playlist, the PLS playlist has the wrong body. Control S, let's close the sidebar. Okay, and now we can start the debugger. Okay, if everything works okay, the next thing to do would be create a test that jumps straight into playlist parser. Put many M3U files from the internet through that test, such that we fix all of the M3U parsing bugs. Put many PLS files from the internet, such that we fix all of the PLS playlist bugs. And create many tests such that we cover all of the bug fixes. By having a test that jumps straight to playlist parser, we will not need to start Elisa again, the full GUI graphical user interface application. Okay, so it has created a local object. Now we use its method. The file name is valid and not empty. The file name ends case insensitively with .pls. No, it ends with M3U or M3U8. So it calls the other parser, the M3U playlist parser, has just one method. This is the body unchanged that we took from the existing source code. It creates a correct queue list of queue URL. It returns that. That thing then is returned by its caller object, which is the dispatcher playlist parser. And then that's returned in the load playlist method. And the rest is history. Okay. A moment to do a git commit. Okay, and what we do is we actually dispatch between the two classes, PLS playlist parsers and M3U playlist parser. Okay. Let's create a test and jump straight into such that we don't depend on loading the entire graphical user interface. For that, I go to debug, projects, build and run, imported git, run, and then run configurations. So there's possible run configurations ending in test. All of these are tests. So we have the media playlist model test. Let's find this thing where it is on the hard disk. So we have the other Visual Studio Code. Let's search for this thing. Okay, so it's in the auto tests CMake lists. we'll need to have such a thing. And then we'll need a file. And then include it. Okay. So we need to search by this. Should appear in just 2 files. And that's what it is. So let's do this. Auto tests cmakelist.txt. This thing, cmakelist.txt. So it starts at line 86 and ends at line 99. I don't know what this thing does. So from what I see, there's 3 things: a set, an ECM add test, and a target include directories. Let's look better at the media playlist test. This has a configure. Control C. Are these sorted alphabetically? Database view manager test, no. Okay, so after this, Control V. Let's put some comments, whatever the comments are. Okay, instead of media playlist proxy model test, we'll have, what's the thing? Playlist parser test, control. This thing, okay. So this thing will replace control H. How do we do replace? Edit. Find replace. Just replace. Control F. Replace this. So test sources. This should be uppercase T. I don't know what I'm doing. So we need to have a playlist parser test.cpp file. Where is that? In auto tests. So we should have a pair. How do we do that? I don't know. Media playlist proxy model test. Control-C, Control-V. So the file names should be lowercase from what I see. Playlist parser test. Continue. Playlist parser test. Continue. Where are they? Okay. Let's get back to the CMake list file, Control S. So it says playlist parser test sources, playlist parser test.cpp, playlist parser test sources, test name playlist parser test. Target include directories, playlist parser test. Which is this thing? Can't we have everything lowercase? I'll make everything lowercase. Okay, so playlist parser test lowercase, playlist parser test lowercase, Control S, playlist parser test lowercase, Control S. Okay, now let's see where we get. Build, run CMake. Where is the output from CMake? Okay, so this is the output of CMake. Looks okay. Looks okay. bin files. I don't know what that thing is. Target sources. Elisa plugin, QML plugin. How many times did CMake actually run? Okay, looks good to me. Let's see in projects that we have in here our test, which is playlist parser test. Yes, we have it. Let's put a breakpoint in our test, which is playlist parser test.cpp. This thing. Okay, and let's run with the debugger. Build all over the place. Okay, it says that multiple definition of the same thing. Okay, now we're talking. Correct. Let's do a git commit because it's getting complicated. So we've added the 3 blocks of lines in cmake list.txt for our new test. We have new files, cpp and h, but the content is really old. Okay, so add playlist parser test, commit, and now let's see what we need to do. In here, so playlist parser test.cpp and .h is database test data queue object. Init test case and queue. Okay, let's do a rename. Control something. Control F. Playlist parser test. But playlist parser test once, twice. Where are you? Replace and find. Okay, this will need to make it uppercase. I'm not sure why we use ifdef guards instead of pragma ones. Just way too many tests. We'll need to clean all of the tests to keep just 1 or 2 as an example. Okay. Control S. Let's see one test that's simple, and we'll keep just that. So there's a constructor, init test case, simple initial case. The most complicated one is called simple initial case. So let's keep this one. Let's edit this. Release parser test. How do we uppercase it? Capitalization, uppercase, this thing. Control C. Control V. V. And V. And we're inheriting from the wrong type probably. What's the simplest test in here? Not this one. No. 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 I don't know. File writer test. Bingo. You're the one. Okay, so let's look at how it looks like now. I have 3 test cases, one for just one M3U playlist with 2 files that have full path Unix style, separated by new lines, and it makes sure that the returned list has 2 elements, then one in a special format, which is M3U but extended, which can contain comments, which has 2 elements. Again, I'm making sure there's the returned list of URLs contains just 2 elements. And then for the PLS playlists, I took the format from the wiki page, so PLS file format Wikipedia. So there's this INI style file with arrays that increment their key and key value pairs separated by equal sign. This is an INI section, so we'll need to ignore anything that doesn't start with file. So if it starts with file, then we find the equals, and then we take everything that's after the equals. These three, and the result should be a list of queue URLs that contains 3 items. I have added the tests at the top of media playlist proxy model test file, the existing test. And I also needed to edit the media playlist proxy model test.h file, so my 3 test cases. Ctrl S. Let's debug this thing. So I have breakpoints everywhere. It runs init test case. After that, the very first thing to be run is my first test, then my second test, then my third test. So now the debugger starts really fast in my source code. It doesn't start the Elisa graphical user interface application. I don't need to open the file open dialog, etc. Okay, and the parse method, let's put a breakpoint in here in the 2 classes for PLS and M3U. I needed to put in the media playlist proxy model.h the signature of the 3 classes. I needed to export the playlist parser, so the dispatcher class, using Elisa lib export, which does attribute visibility default. Otherwise I couldn't access it from the tests. And now in the CPP file media playlist proxy model.cpp, I have just the implementation of the methods. So 1 method per class with its implementation. Okay, F5, F10. I added support for comments, so the line should not start with a comment. And I added support for HTTP. So in here was only file. So now I allow other protocols. It was line starts with and then qstring literal file, whereas now its line contains qstring literal of ://. Okay. So the test failed. Where is the test? No, it did not fail. Okay, M3U. This also works correctly, ignores the comments. And I didn't implement yet the PLS case, so I need to implement it. This is what's next. Then I'll do I'll create a branch for my work. I'll push it to my Git repository, which is a clone of the... Let's go there. So this is my clone of the Elisa invent.kde.org Git repository. I'm going to push here my branch, and then I'm going to create a merge request from my Git repository to the official Git repository. So invent.kde.org/multimedia/Elisa. So this is it. Thank you. This was how to implement the source code that implements the feature that's requested in bugs.kde.org d9077c55. That requests that we add support for the PLS playlist format to the application Elisa. Thank you.